Welcome to the first ever episode of Undertale What-If Battles. In this new series, I will be pitting two different characters from the Undertale universe against one another in order to find out which would win in a fight. Without further ado, let's get started with the first match. You might be wondering, which two characters are going to be picked to kick off this legendary series? Well, first, we have the King of Monsters, Child Murderer, and Fluffy Pushover himself, Asgore. His opponent, the entirety of the Underground's Froggit population. Yup, you might be looking at this and thinking, well, this seems like an unfair fight. Asgore's gonna mop the floor with them. Well, dear viewer, this fight is gonna have some very specific rules in order to make this a little more fair. 1. Asgore will be fighting with his mortals on. 2. I will be using a certain number of Froggits. For this fight, I'll use 6 regular Froggits, 3 final Froggits, and 1 tiny Froggit who lives in the Wall of the Ruins. 3. The Froggits are going to be straight up looking for blood. They will be going all out for this fight, and they want Asgore dead. Finally, the Froggits are aware of Asgore's abilities alongside his collection of human souls. Anyway, with all these rules out of the way, let's analyze our fighters' abilities. Asgore is the powerful and mighty king of the underground. He sports shiny gold armor, a massive red trident, and extremely deadly fire abilities. His strength and durability allowed him to take down 6 human children. This is a massive feat of strength, as it was stated in the Snowden library that 1 human soul is equal in power to the entirety of the monster population. His speed is no joke either. He was capable of dodging hits from Undyne with ease, a character capable of running faster than a human child in extremely heavy armor. Even during his fight with Frisk, Asgore held back massively and still took many attacks to put down. It's quite clear that Asgore is an extremely deadly foe, but he does have one massive weakness. After years of child murder, Asgore's rage subsided and he became a lot less prone to violence. His newfound distaste for combat can not only lead to him getting caught off guard, but can also lead to him not giving a fight his all. Despite this, it's quite clear the Froggits are going to need a lot of power to take him down. Even if Asgore was in trouble, he still has several human souls at his disposal, and if combined with a boss monster soul, would give him godlike abilities. The Froggits are a type of monster that reside in both the Ruins and New Home. Despite being defeated in only 2 hits from a human, they possess a powerful jumping ability alongside the power to summon swarms of flies. Final Froggits are simply more advanced versions of Froggit, having upgraded attack and defense. Despite having decent attacks, like I said before, their defense is quite low. They also don't seem like the most intelligent species, as they don't seem to understand human language and are extremely easily convinced to stop fighting. Overall, the Froggits are going to have to rely on sheer numbers and teamwork in order to get the edge over Asgore. Alright, that was both of our combatants analyzed, and now for my favorite part of all of this, narrating a scenario where they fight. You can choose to either listen to me read out the scenario, or watch along with the little visuals I put on screen. Anyways, without further ado, let's kick off the first ever fight in the Undertale What-If Battles. As the sounds of birds chirping echoed throughout the throne room, Asgore calmly looked at his surroundings, admiring the sea of golden flowers that covered a majority of the throne room floor. He held in his hand a small cup of tea, golden flower, his favorite. As he raised the cup to take a sip, the sound of broken glass could be heard from behind him, followed by what sounded like the croaking of several frogs. He turned, thinking it was just some kids playing a prank on him. What he saw was a small platoon of Froggits standing before him. Asgore wasn't at all surprised. He knew Froggits were simple creatures, and all of this was simply an accident that came from their blissful ignorance. Or so he thought. He smiled warmly, stepping forward. As he stepped towards the group of frog-like monsters, he noticed that a few of them were final Froggits. This slightly puzzled the king of the monsters. He was aware of the simplicity of the standard Froggits, but final Froggits? He was under the notion that they had risen above their brethren in both power and intellect. Despite the small bubble of doubt swelling inside of him, he continued walking towards them. He spoke to them as he moved forward, telling the Froggits that he forgave them for the broken window, raising a small cup, offering them some tea. As he was offering the monsters some tea, a small swarm of flies shot towards the king. As if it was out of pure instinct, Asgore effortlessly avoided the attack. As he opened his mouth to speak, a massive swarm of flies shot towards him as all 9 Froggits began attacking at once. Asgore quickly dodged their projectiles. He was genuinely surprised now. Why were they turning against him? Have all these centuries of solitude caused his people to see him unfit as a ruler, a leader? As he was lost in thought, he didn't notice a stray fly jetting towards his face. He raised up his cup of tea to block it, the fly crashing into the small cup as porcelain scattered across the flowers of the throne room. Asgore bowed his head solemnly as 2 Froggits jumped towards him. Suddenly, a massive flash of light filled the throne room, the sound of magic following it soon after. As the light dimmed, the 2 Froggits laid unconscious on the ground, their faces planted in the golden flowers. Above them stood Asgore wielding his massive red trident. He turned towards the remaining 7 Froggits, pointing his trident in warning towards them. Undeterred, the Froggits fire another swarm of flies towards the king. Asgore sighed, swinging his trident with little effort as an arc of fire launched towards the frogs. The 7 frogs jumped in the air. Their proficiency in jumping allowed them to avoid the flames as it crashed into the throne room wall, creating a large hole. As the frogs land on the ground, the last 4 standard Froggits leap into the air, using the roof as momentum to launch themselves toward the king at high speed. The king gripped his trident, his eyes glowing a bright blue. He knew that there was no way the Froggits could avoid his strike as he swung his trident at them, a glowing blue aura radiating from the prongs of it. The trident made direct contact as the 4 Froggits were sent flying back, all of them careening out of the hole Asgore made with his fire. Realizing their situation, the 3 remaining final Froggits look at one another. The monsters turn back to their king before a wave of flies surround them. As the flies gather together, they begin to glow. The 3 Froggits use their hope for the bright future ahead to make their attack as strong as possible, aiming to defeat the king once and for all. As Asgore sees this, he realizes that he has no choice but to go all out. He raises his trident in front of him, twirling it. The trident glows a bright orange as fire begins covering it. As the swarm of flies careens towards him, the Monster King unleashes a torrent of fire. The 2 magic projectiles clash with one another mid-air as sparks fly from it. Despite the final Froggits' efforts, Asgore's magic overpowered their own as the king's wave of fire approached the final Froggits. Due to the exhaustion that stemmed from their magical attack, the monsters were helpless as the massive torrent of flames engulfed them. As the flames dispersed, ash was all that was left of the final Froggits. Asgore sighed as he clenched his trident in one hand. Despite his victory, all he could feel was sadness that he had to use his power on his own people. As the king was lost in thought, he suddenly felt a sharp pain hit his back, causing him to fall to the ground. As he turned, he saw the familiar glow of the 6 human souls he had in his possession, only these souls no longer belonged to him. As the Underground's monarch got up, he was face to face with a small white speck, the tiny Froggit. The 6 human souls hovering around it as it had absorbed their power. Desperately, Asgore fired a wave of flames toward the tiny Froggit, with the small monster effortlessly creating a barrier deflecting the attack. Asgore, now clenching his trident with fury instead of guilt, charged forward, raising it up in the air, preparing to bring it down on the small Froggit. As he charged forward, the small Froggit created a tiny glowing fly, sending it towards the king. As Asgore ran forward, the fly drilled straight into his chest, piercing right through his golden armor. As he was hit, Asgore fell to the ground, looking up at the tiny white speck. Closing his eyes, the king accepted his fate as he turned to dust. As the king faded away, the tiny Froggit carefully placed the human souls back into their containers and returned to the ruins, once again taking up residence in the ruined walls. Well, that was certainly an interesting battle. Looks like the king of the monsters was unable to step up to the power of a few frogs, and a reality warping god frog too, I guess. Well, anyway, if you like this what-if battle and want to see more, please leave a comment below. Heck, I'll even make your what-if scenarios if you want me to. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.